Hello, Facebook land again. Okay, so we did a video the other night and I've changed the angle of this camera here. Let me see if I can make sure I get it right so you guys can see us. We did a video where we did the siliconing on these parts. So the next step in our pattern is we've got to do a beauty coat, and then we're doing fiberglass on it. So I thought you guys watch this part. We're going to take and do the part here where we're doing our beauty coat mix-up and getting it coated and prepped for fiberglass. Get us all ready to do our fiberglass shell. And then once we've done that, we'll take a break and spend a little bit, and we'll get all prepped up for the fiberglass itself. And then we'll go through and show you guys that. We'll do another video in a couple hours. I know it's a little early in the afternoon for haunters. A lot of you are building haunts, just like us. That's kind of what these are for. But we're working on it, so I'm hoping you guys can learn something on all these things, and we'll do it. See if I can get all these so you guys can see these molds and parts. Here we go. So we're going to take and work on getting the prep work done for fiberglass again. So in these molds, and I think you can see them a little better now, we took and we haven't done much since the last video beyond building our silicone up and getting lots of coats. You can see we got the third one siliconed and ready for glass. It's finishing drying now. It'll be done in another probably 45 minutes or an hour. I talked about last time about fast cat and doing fast kicking in the silicone. The first couple coats we absolutely did not want to use it because that's where my detail is, where I don't want it to rip. The last couple layers we did with fast cat on them, so I know they're going to kick, and cure up faster. You can mix a couple percentage of something called fast cat. We use a Tinsel fast cat that is for, you mix it in at like between 1 and 5%, depending on how fast you want it to kick. The more you use, the less durable your silicone gets, but it's worth doing. So, well, looking at the molds, I've got this one kind of started. This air dry clay is getting hard, so I'll have to fill a couple of cracks that have started up. I think you can see one of them in the video here where it started to crack out. That's just because it's using an air clay and not a wet clay. But I wanted the different color, if you recall from the last video. Go back and watch it farther down to see that. But so we've got a silicone. Some of it's a little thick. Some of it's kind of more the right thickness, and that's just because of the way it was sitting with gravity. So this is the Anubis-like head. This is our crazy alien monster. This is our crazy statue head. So I'm building the mold wall up here. I want my fiberglass mold wall to be at least 2 inches all the way around, if I can get it, so that when I put these two pieces together and bolt them together, I'm sideways?
You're sideways.
Well, that's awkward. Hold on, someone just told me I'm sideways. Let me flip this around because sideways probably doesn't work for a lot of you. Okay, we'll switch it that way. Sorry, y'all. Okay. Now I don't look stupid. Well, I probably look stupid, but okay. So maybe you're just supposed to turn your camera sideways.
Well, if they're looking at it this way.
Yeah, it looks dumb. Okay. So I want all my mold walls to be about 2 inches wide. So when I bolt the two pieces of fiberglass together to hold that silicone tight together, I've got enough width for it, and I'm going to do a groove down around it so these two pieces snap in real tight and hold the silicone in exactly the right shape. My silicone's thick enough so when I build up and make that fiberglass shell, it's going to hold it and go up against my base. Something I'm going to mention at this point, when I do this next coat, which is a fiberglass mix, I got to be careful on my head. Let me see if I can show you. I don't know if you can see it here because I'm now changed my angle, but the head molds that we use are actually a fiberglass base. So I need to Vaseline this so the next coat doesn't bond to it or it won't peel off without ruining my mold. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot to deal with. So again, you can see I got this silicone. I got a couple inches all the way around. I got to build a little more mold wall on this one. It's thick enough around the head, not so much at the base, but I'll fix that. This one I also need to get a little wider around the silicone or trim my silicone back, both of which I'm going to do. So, but I need to give this one a little while, so we'll do that prep work before we do the fiberglass one. I'm going to take in just Bondo and Fiberglass Prep. It's a beauty coat. These ones, and I'll show you how we're mixing that and what we're doing with it in a minute. So we'll Bondo these two and Fiberglass Prep these two. I'll do that one off video, and then we'll Fiberglass. So kind of walking you through a little bit more of the mix. Here's what we're actually going to do. I didn't bring my Fiberglass mix out. My resin. Alright, so for this one I've turned on a bunch of extra fans, make sure I don't have a smell problem, but this is a fiberglass resin, and the fiberglass resin, flammable bad, you don't want to be smoking around it, you don't want to do it, you're going to want some mask, yeah, wait for a second, there you go, that's the fiberglass resin. This fiberglass resin, you can buy it, actually, if you're doing a small mold, you can buy it at Lowe's, Home Depot. They have 1 gallon cans. When you're doing a lot of it, you buy them in...
It's in the auto body.
It's in the auto body section, or auto body shops will have it. Lowe's and Home Depot actually have it by polyurethanes and stuff. You can order 5 gallons online, and it gets cheaper by the gallon by quite a bit. The other thing we're going to use to do this is Bondo. Same can you get at Lowe's, same thing you use to do the body of your car when you're doing it. Depending on how thick you want the Bondo to be, or how thick your beauty coat. The beauty coat really kind of almost isn't necessary on a silicone mold. It's not a bad thing to ever do because it's going to help the fiberglass fit in better. The Bondo is going to fit into the small cracks and the little goo of this thing. Oh, there's a chunk here. Okay. Let me show you a little bit more on the molds of exactly this. If you look a little closer at the molds in the silicone mold, there's lots of these little chunks. We've already trimmed a bunch off. There's probably a few more I'm going to go trim. But I've got a bunch of these little things. And fiberglass is going to be really hard to get into these chunks. Okay, so some of these will get trimmed off, and I need to trim a couple more. But so it's got the silicone ready and the silicone prep. Yeah, probably. Should double check that, make sure this works. Okay, I'm not. Oh well. I'll do that for the next one. We're going to trim some of those off, and trimming them is actually nothing more than this. We call these tails or something. This little tail is going to affect my piece, so I'm going to just chop some of those off. Try and get them down to make it a little easier for the beauty coat to sit in. But we trim some of these. I got to trim a few more. So we're doing the beauty coat just to make a smoother base, because pulling the silicone in and out of the mold later, I don't want it to catch and rip against the fiberglass. So you can do it straight on fiberglass. There's nothing that says you can't, except you're going to affect how long your mold's going to last. So doing a beauty coat on there makes your silicone mold a whole lot better, a lot less sharp points, a lot less cut points. And a whole lot kind of easier to do in your trunk. So we'll beauty coat it. To make the beauty coat, what I'm going to do is mix up the fiberglass resin and the Bondo in kind of a 50-50 mix. So more or less we keep the old cans of this. This is, you can tell it's a bit runnier. This one is a Bondo that has not been modified, and it's much slower to run as a paste. Whereas this one's going to be a lot runnier, and it's already mixed. And because you're mixing the fiberglass resin with the Bondo, you're gaining a lot of the fiberglass going on it is going to bond really, really well, and it's going to kick. So this stuff, the Bondo kicks. Let me cover up the one I don't need here because I have enough in that one to at least do the first chunk and make this video work. You're going to do just a normal cream hardener that comes in this little plastic cap on your Bondo can. This is what activates the Bondo. To activate the resin, you need a bottle of MEKP. It's methyl ethyl ketone peroxide, MEKP. And it's the hardener that activates the resin. It's also the stuff that makes the real bad smell And if you use too much, it kicks it real quick and starts smoking and makes a big mess, and gets smelly and toxic, and you don't want to be in the room. Hence the reason I've got a mask around. I did turn on some air though, so if I need to do some talking, I'll pull my mask off and talk to you guys for a little while, but you don't want to do too much of that. So again, I'm going to do that mold, I'm going to do that mold. That one's still not totally kicked. I can tell because it's going, but it's still a little squishy in a couple spots. You can tell it's making a fingerprint indentation, whereas like on the harder one over here, it doesn't at all. So I know I'm ready there. So we'll do those. Fun, let me switch back over here. And note to self, I can't do it horizontal. All right. Probably the other video makes me look real stupid because it's sideways.
It did right.
It did it right on the last one? Weird. Okay.
You get it.
Maybe it's because I rotated it after the fact.
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay. Again, we use these Home Depot or Harbor Freight drill tips because they're kind of disposable. They cost you a couple bucks to do. Knock off any junk I don't want in it. And mixing it. So you really don't need a mask on this. At least I don't. Your mileage may vary. Don't need a mask on it until you really start getting it to kick. But you definitely want to mask here. And glove up. The resin will, in a lot of people, when you're doing the Bondo and the resin, cause you to break out and have rashes. So you don't really want that stuff on your skin at all. A good trick we found and we live by, and we use the daylights out, is baby wipes, actually. Go buy cheap baby wipes in the biggest tubs you can find. And we use baby wipes to rub down the skin when you get resin on it. The aloe of the baby wipes and the resin, it takes the resin off and keeps you from breaking out as bad. So we try and do that as much as we can. Anytime we need it. So I've got enough that I've already mixed. Generally we'll take a half a can of Bondo and just pre-mix the whole can with the resin. So we got a batch. And then when you need more, you kind of have an extra can from last time and you pour it half and then you got 2 more cans. And you just keep kind of mixing it up and doing it. This stuff's not the cheapest way to do it. Again, so beauty coat's not really needed. But if you're doing glass, it just makes your life a lot easier. Now what we do for doing this, we use these 32-ounce cups. Let me find another chair. There's a stool. Give me the stool. I'm going to do this right in front of you. We use the 32-ounce cup so that I know how much Bondo I'm going to do. And then I'll just mix a couple at a time, and then I can kick them, stir them, do them right out of the cup, and then toss the cup away when I'm done, because all the brushes, all the cups, all the things you use for this are trash. They're no good when you're done. So basically I'm going to mix up, we'll see if I got enough to do 2 cups in this can. I think I got 1. We'll fill up. There's, I don't know, 28, 30 ounces. Okay, looks like I got enough for 1 cup out of this can. So now I have an empty can to mix the next batch in. That'll make that a little easier. We'll do 1 cup first. I'll do another cup maybe in a minute. Alright, I'm going to mask up for a few while I get all this, mixing and kicking. Or I'll talk and then I'll put a mask on before I start pouring it. It's probably easier. MEKP. I need hardener. Now, how much of this hardener is... It's a knack. You're going to screw up a couple times. I recommend you guys, if you're doing any of these kind of stuff with the fiberglass, do it outside. Do it where you're not going to fume your whole garage up and get stuck. But we're going to take and do this. I've got, let's call it 28 ounces worth of Bondo resin, which means I have 14 ounces of Bondo and 14 ounces of resin-ish. This is not an exact measurement kind of problem. This is an approximation kind of problem. You need 10 drops of MEKP for every ounce of the fiberglass resin. And then you need, the precision answer is a squirt. I don't even know exactly how much. I mix it by color, and I'm looking for a good, kind of burgundy red color, light pink. The darker it gets, the faster it's going to kick. And when it kicks, it's done. It's gonna go quick. So you don't want it too dark, but if you make it too light, it takes a really long time to kick. So I'm actually gonna make this go a little more on the dark side because I want it to happen fast so I can do the other video for you guys tonight. And I'm going to put a little extra drops into my resin so that it kicks a little quicker too, because both need to be hard and done for this to work. If you mix one of these without doing the other one, you're toast, because the thing will never kick right, never cured. It'll be slimy mess, and you're going to spend a bunch of time scraping it off. So I've got my tip cut, so one small squirt is about 10 drops. If we let Becky use and squirt it, it's like 40 drops, so it's never as good. But 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Because I want it to go quick, I'm going to put an extra couple squirts in. That's going to make that happen faster. And I'm going to do my Bondo activator, which for a cup this size, here's about how much I'm going to do with it. That's about all you need. It should mix up. I can add a little more if I don't like the way the color works. This is kind of a trial and error learning thing, and you have to screw some stuff up to get it right. You want to be careful not to splatter your stuff with the MEKP or the Bondo or the resin, because then it's on your skin. Definitely don't want to get it on your face, because that sucks. There we go. Now I got it. Let's mix in. I might need a little more of my Bondo activator here. It's not quite the color I want, so I'm going to add a little more Bondo resiner to this, because I really want this to be a pink kind of color. You can buy extra hardener if you like the darker colors. You can buy more hardener at Lowe's, or order it from wherever you're buying it from. Alright, if you were to scroll the video back and see the color difference, this one has quite a bit more red tone now. Again, the redder it gets, the faster it's going to kick. So, let's see if I get enough of my color here. I want this to go faster because it's taking too long. Alright. There we go. Now I got the color I want. I have about 5 minutes now to make this work. Yeah, I'm gonna put my mask on. Alright. Definitely spin off your drill, because that gear's gonna come back and bite you in the butt and ruin your drill bit. Alright, I'm gonna mask up for a few because this stuff sucks. It's gonna start getting really smelly. I picked the wrong mask today because I can't figure out how to attach me.
So why you went out of this?
Alright, yeah, you get started. Oh, I broke this mask last time.
Yep. You overkicked it.
Is it done already? No. So, like I say, it's a knack. This one's a little overkicked because it's already done. Took too long to mix it. I talked too much. So next time, now that I've wasted this bucket, I'm going to not talk as much. Alright, let's try the next round. Hey, you gotta watch this whole kick part now. Alright. Becky's laughing because I screw stuff up all the time. So we're gonna mix up a whole batch. I got an empty Bondo cup, and I've got about a half a can of Bondo. So I'm gonna take my half a can of Bondo, and I'm gonna add about the equivalent amount of Fiberglass resin. I talked way too long and mixed that way too much. This blue color stuff must be affecting my resin colors.
It does.
Is that why?
Yes.
I mixed it way too hard then.
Yeah.
I thought my first squirt looked right, but it didn't make the right color.
No, it's typically based.
Okay. at this point, the Bondo and the resin, which is what I got in here, is not going to activate or kick. Putting the two together won't make it do anything. It's going to just make a mix. Both of these require an activator. They don't interact with each other. So right now I just have a mix of goo. Now let's try this again, this time without too much Bondo hardener. Alright. For anyone who cares, that was a $15 oops. And Becky's still laughing at me. Okay. So there's my Bondo resin for my next cup. I'm going to close up my resin so I don't contaminate it. Alright. About 14 squirts. I did 16 because I want it to still go faster. It's not as quick as I did last time. Same amount of the Bondo hardener I expect. Now I'm going to stop talking to you all for a few. Alright. I'm just back and put my mask on because I went too quick. This is just the Bondo resin mix, and we're really just going to brush it in and try and get it in all these spots that we want it in. Yeah, it's going to continue to go. It's still liquidy, so it is going to run up a little bit.
And I spilled a little.
Alright. Holy shit, you got wearing respirators.
Shut up.
Not very exciting when you can't hear me. I know, I'm not talking. I'm done with it. That's all my cup. I only made 20 ounces. So.
This one's good.
Alright. It's about done. Alright. So that brush is done. That piece is done. Perfect waste of a batch of Bondo. Again. Alright. So, I'll take my mask off. Fan's going, I'm okay. This stuff's going to be done in about 3, 4, 5 more minutes. 3 minutes. All we've done is coat the silicone part. I didn't really have to do the edges. Probably would have been smart to do it, but we don't really have to. And we're going to come back and do another bit of it as soon as I finish the mold wall. So Bondo will come down around and cover this whole mold wall. So I have a real pretty seam, which will also help reduce the amount of fiberglass splinters that I would ever get from using the mold. I need more. The Bondo resin mix will bond to itself, so the fact that I only did part of this one won't matter at all. And So now I'm gonna take and go work on my mold wall, finish mold wall, and do that part. So this isn't so bad. My how do I click that out? There we go. All right, so there we go. Yep, time for a little more mold wall excitement. I don't know if I really call it excitement. Me and mold walls don't really get along well. Where's my cutting board? Under the table?
Bucket's on it.
Oh, got it. So, there we go. So we use, when we do reclaim clay, which we don't do all the time, it's easier to do mold walls with brand new blocks, but we do reclaim some. We just do it a lot slower than we ought to. And we just put them in the Super Monsters Ziploc bags we find at the store and use those. Amazon. Is those Amazon? Amazon. I like Amazon. I shop on Amazon way too much. But so I'm really just going to get some blocks to help smooth out my clay chunk. Probably don't need that many blocks anyway, so. You guys can probably still see this on this mold. Let me switch so you can watch this mold. Alright. So I'm just using a little bit of clay and I'm just going to fill in my crack. The chunk I got to deal with is pretty small in these areas. But the water clay we used, or the air dry clay, a lot less than wet, cracked just overnight, even with decent weather. So, because it wasn't this way yesterday. So I'm just going to fill it all in, kind of keep my groove going here. Mostly make sure when I pour my Bondo on that it's not dripping out. So, yes, Michael, working with the nasty stuff is right. The Bondo, the fiberglass, all that stuff sucks. But it makes really good production molds that we can use for a really long time. And kind of not a way around it. The other choice for anyone who wants to know alternative ways instead of this Bondo resin mix and then going through fiberglass and going through that disgusting nasty stuff. Another way people do it, and we've done some this way, is use a plastic resin. The Polytech has something called 1512X. Basically it's the same plastic you find in toys and all these kind of things. It's just a hard plastic, and you can mix up a plastic and make your hard shell out of plastic. It's a little lighter, it's a little less durable. Dropping that is more likely to break, whereas dropping a fiberglass mold, it's not. But it is a way to do it, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's a great way to do it, and if you're just getting started and wanting to play with a mold, I recommend not really playing with the fiberglass, because it's a hard, expensive, disgusting, toxic way of doing things. But the plastic is a little more expensive. And so you're trading off making your life easy for a little money. Kind of story of everything. You can trade a little money to get whatever you want. But the plastic resin molds, plastics make great molds. The trick is, unlike a fiberglass mold that's maybe a 1/4 inch thick, a plastic mold needs to be at least a good 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch thick to make a good plastic mold. I think I've got one in the closet behind me. I can show you. For those who want to see an alternative to the fiberglass molding process I'm in the middle of. For those just catching in or watching up, this is part 2 of a 3-part, apparently going to be a 3-part mold process here. I decided to do it in a couple of videos because it was a little disgusting and long, and I figured you guys didn't want to watch me for 12 hours straight. So this is part 2 where we're doing fiberglass prep. I'm going to split out to a part 3 of these 3 heads, which is doing the fiberglass side. If someone's really interested, I'll let you watch the second half of them as well, but really once you've seen the first half, the second half is a repeat. It's just in a new one. Here, Becky's got she found one in the closet here. So this is an alternative to a fiberglass mold. It's a plastic mold. It's a good 1/2 inch thick. It's got a silicone in between. This is I think this one's actually an older one of ours that looks like Mold Max 30 that we've tinted. But it's got the silicone shell in it. This is from a life cast of a head. And then we use the 1512X as a plastic shell. So it's a bit lighter, but if I were to throw this on the ground, the odds of me cracking the plastic are much higher than if I do it in a fiberglass. It won't so much. So that's a plastic version, which is the alternative to this process we're doing here. Alright, so I'm glad that fan is on because this resin's got a nice disgusting scent. As a note, I'll say if your eyes start burning while you're doing this, that's a good time to take a break and get some air. If you already weren't smart enough to go out in the air in the first place. Wait, I just called myself stupid, didn't I? Alright. Let me get some of this mold wall out of my way. Because I can't finish this one with it there. Alright. So we're just building. Did I just see Al Driver join us? Yeah. Hey Al. Let me switch over so you guys see this second one that I'm working on. I'm just going on this one and rebuilding a bit of my mold wall and getting it prepped up to ready for glass. So like I started, I'm going to make sure I'm at least a good 2 inches around. Making it wider is not really a problem. Doesn't take a whole lot more fiberglass. Definitely makes the mold a little easier to carry, handle, gives you much better spots for when you're putting bolts in to screw them together. So you really want the width. More than 3 inches is kind of ridiculous in my book. Unless you have a super huge mold, then you really want a much wider realm to hold on to. For the heads, 2-3 inches is more than good. Alright. So all I'm doing is just making sure I have enough width here. I'm not doing anything real exciting, nor does it need to be quick. I'll be able to smooth it real quick, brush it down, it'll be ready to put my mold on. This will never be a part that a customer would ever see in a finished product because it is just holding the flange of the fiberglass mold later, so it's just my shape. Alright. Another one here. Probably off camera again. I wonder if I should try to rotate it back later. I might have to try that on my own page to see how to get it to rotate, because I think this would be a lot easier if it was wide for people to watch all this stuff in one area. Alright. So I'm making sure I have a good flange for the fiberglass. And I've got a couple areas where I was wide enough earlier, but because of the width of the silicone, it wasn't really wide enough, so it's easier for me to fix this now than end up with a thin flange in the fiberglass. And the reason you have a good flange on your fiberglass is when you're pouring it with foam or something that's expanding and messing with the pressure, you need to have enough strength in the mold to keep the expansion in the mold. Otherwise it'll try and split your mold up. And by having the width of that chunk, you're going to help hold the pressure in and get a much better mold, especially if you're using a 3-pound, 4-pound foam. You're using something that has a lot of expansion, you're going to get a lot of pressure buildup. If you're using something like a 10 or a 17-pound foam, it's not going to expand as much, so you don't have as much pressure buildup. But you still have enough that you want to make sure you have a good flange to hold it together. It also makes the bolts, God, so much easier. I've got a couple of old molds that we did that the flange was an inch and a quarter, and we're like, that'll be enough. It wasn't enough. We regretted having those, and we fight them to this day. But it's also a little harder to go back and do. We probably could rebuild it, but all right. It looks like I got about 2 more pieces of this clay, and then I can go back and do another coat of Bondo here. All right. So just lined up some mold wall. There we go. That's done. Get in there. All right. No, luckily I know a couple of people have told me that watching mold wall is boring, but a couple other people said thanks for showing the mold wall, so now I'm torn between of both. But that's also why I thought I'd do a short part 2 of showing the fiberglass prep, and then a longer video of the actual fiberglass, because that one will take us a good hour and a half to try and knock out.
Michael says you have to start the video already rotated to get the wide view.
You do? Okay. Noted. Thanks, Michael. So I started it vertical and then rotated it, and that screwed me over. Got it. How do you do that? All right. Now I'm cutting down along the mold wall. Not for any reason except I'm trying to make sure I have a consistency of my width, so I know where I'm putting my fiberglass, and I know I need to go all the way out to the edge of that and fold over. It's not really for a prettiness factor because I'm gonna have to grind the darn mold later anyway. But kind of makes it a little easier for me to work with. Alright. Now the exact shape, every mold is different. There's no 2 molds alike, ever. It just doesn't happen. Every mold's going to have a different shape, it's going to have a different cuts, it's going to have some thin points, some wide points, and that's cool. There's kind of no right or wrong way to do these things. This is just the way we've kind of adopted. So I can't fault somebody if you go, it don't work that way, we do it a different way. A, I'd love to know what it is, because maybe we're stupid. B, we're probably both right. And we just have a different preference. That's one thing we've learned about this, is there's always more than one way to skin a cat, especially in the haunted house business. Sometimes you can skin a cat a lot of ways. Prop making's even more so. There's a lot of special effects to learn. One thing's in school, and it's a great way to do it. And there's people who go, well, this way is half the price, but takes twice as long. And so they're all right. And you just got to decide which way is the right way for you. All right. So I've got my mold wall pretty even here, and I'm just going to, I just put my square block. I'm just going to kind of smooth it so that it's even. The biggest purpose on that is just because, and I don't have to worry about hurting my mold because it's silicone, right? At this point, the actual sculpt, where you got to be careful doing this, I don't. I'm just going to square it right up to my silicone. I do kind of want it to be as square as I can to the silicone, because when I have a second, the 2 sides, I want them to fit and not have a weird gap. But I don't have to really worry about hurting my mold here at all, trying to square all this up. So I'm being a little rough and just trying to get it even enough to mold. And I don't want the gaps in this wall, because the Bondo will just run into it, and then, which even then isn't a big deal, because I can use a grinder or a cutter before we make the second side and get it all smooth. But it's that much less work I have to do later if I do it now. So we're doing it now. Alright. Smooth, smooth, smooth. Good enough. Smooth enough. I don't have any real bad bumps. I don't have any really bad chunks going on with it. Check this side. Feels good. Alright, that side's fine. Alright. Got a thing of water and some brushes. And there we clay sculptors. pile is keeping some of this to keep it smooth. So I'm really just kind of smoothing out some chunk now. Because even the scraper doesn't do much. Now, talk about mold keys. Right now is the time you got to figure out how your mold is going to seam together. And again, by seam together, exactly how are these two fiberglass pieces, after I'm done with this chunk, going to fit together? So I'll show you a couple of schools of thought on mold keys, because I think they're a little different in fiberglass, and they're a little different in Bondo, they're a little different in plaster, and they're all right ways, so I'll kind of show you all of them. I use a sculpting tool to cut mold keys. There we go. Alright, so you can see, I think in this first one, let me see if I can, if you can see it close enough. In this one, I took and put a groove in. It's roughly the size of an eraser, okay? So it's grooved in and kind of smooth, and by using the wet brush, I smooth down that groove, or you can use your finger and smooth that groove down. That groove, so when I have two pieces, it's going to lock it and hold it perfectly in place. So the silicone should in turn line up in place, and when it gets pressure, it's going to keep it locked tight. Another way you can do it, and I'll probably have to show you on the second mold because the first one is the wet clay, it's dried faster. Another way is using a tool more in the vein of this, and cutting out chunks. I'll cut this one a little deeper, and I'll come bring the camera closer so you can see it, because it's worth seeing. Registration keys, kind of an important thing. Alright, so I've made a registration key here, so when I put the two molds together, they're going to fit into that bump and lock in. Alright. Not a super deep one, but it's probably 1/4 inch deep at the deepest part. If you look on this one, I've got a 1/4 inch groove. If you've got a much bigger mold, there's nothing to say you can't have a much bigger groove than the 1/4 inch. Nothing to say you can't have a groove in like that. Or you can even go even more pronounced. It's not going to hurt your two pieces going together. It just means you have to be a little more cautious when you're doing the fiberglass on it, so that you're thick enough at that point that you didn't actually cause a weak spot, because you made it too thin on the other side, so you got to make sure you groove that pretty good. I'll just go ahead, since I started it on this one, and do that bigger groove, because I already have to compensate for it. Do you have to have this all the way around? The answer is no. Does it help? The answer is yes. Do I recommend it? The answer is yes. Do I always do it? The answer is no. Because sometimes you forget, is it going to ruin anything? Really, no. I do have a natural registration that will occur because I'm going to drill holes in my fiberglass for the two sides, and because I have those, I can make sure they line up. They just won't lock as good. So in other words, there's a little more air that will naturally be able to come out. So by taking and having a good registration mark, I'm reducing the amount of air that can get in, and therefore I'm going to get a little bit better of a seal, which means my foam's going to go better, latex isn't going to leak out when you fill it, any of those kind of things. I'm just cleaning up some chunks. I've got a fairly good one over here. You can see I've got a good registration mark all the way around that'll hold those together. Again, its purpose is just to do it. Third one's not totally done, but I'll get this one all prepped and get this mold wall built up before we here. Alright, let's see if I can get this back up to watch. There we go. Alright, a little better. So this, by the way, is already done. I mean, I can touch it, it's not sticky, it's already kicked. I could go right now and start putting fiberglass on it. You probably don't want to wait too many days in between, just because you're getting dust, so it's going to be hard to attach. But There's nothing that says you can't. Most of the time, you'll do a Bondo coat today. You'll do a fiberglass coat tomorrow. I let it cure a little longer because I kicked it a little hotter. It's a little thinner. I might chip a few spots, but nothing dramatic. So I can work with it. I got a couple of chunks I don't like. So I'm going to. Where's those good scissors? Big red ones. I don't like this chunk here because my silicone is going to catch on it. So I'm actually just going to get rid of it in Bondo here and then add a little more Bondo because I'm going to do some anyway. I got a little cracking from shifting, but not going to affect me any. So I'm just trimming it up. As a beauty coat, it's real thin. It just makes a beauty coat. Like if you're repairing a hole in a car, you use it, sand it all down, you fiberglass shell it, then you Bondo to beauty coat. In mold making, you beauty coat first and then Bondo the shell because you want the beauty side to be inwards. So I don't like that one. Okay. So honestly, I could go rip this Bondo off if I really didn't like it and start over because it's just against the silicone. It won't matter. There's a problem on this one I might as well do now. Real good scissors. Don't do what I did as a child and use your mother's scissors. She gets really mad. I've never been able to have scissors in my house that don't get used for something they're not supposed to. And probably most hunters have the same problem I do. Alright. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to mix another batch of Bondo, and this time I'm going to do it all the way up that seam and get all the way around and finish coating that one. And that will be good. I'll show you here we're mixing this up. Alright. And another tip. Alright, I'm going to mask up again because I'm going to kick this stuff hot. It's going to smell. I don't like the toxic fumes. They don't bother me so much. They definitely bother my eyes, so I don't really like it. But when they bother the eyes, if you're dumb like we are and going to do this inside, then definitely get yourself outside and get air. Make sure you have lots of extra fans put on. We've got an airflow running through the shop, which is probably saving grace. And do it here. Alright. Gloves. Need gloves. Gonna go through a lot of gloves. Because once you get them gooed up and hard, you're kind of done with the glove mixing. Got a couple brushes there for us? You got one? Get another one. Alright, I'm going to mix this one to about 30. So I had a little more pre-made this time. And then MEKP and the Bondo activator. Move a couple tools. I don't want to get damaged by this. Move my clay block. I don't need to contaminate. Okay. So I'm about 15 this time. Here's my MEKP. Here's my Bondo hardener. Looks like a small black garden snake. Alright. Alright, here we go. I'll pour this wall, Becky, and you can go run down the wall. Make sure you get it up around the edge that we Vaselined. So we Bondo that. I'm going to put a big chunk out here. Alright. Is it kicking quick? Okay, get the rest out of my bucket. All yours. Dance with the devil in the pale moonlight.
Yeah, I don't know that song. It's called Dancing myself.
Alright. Vaseline. Let's just pull it away from the Vaseline. Alright. That's not bad. Probably could use one more cup, but won't matter. Alright. Actually, there's no other areas packed. This one looks good. That one's ready to glass. You got any more in that cup? Damn it. There you go. Alright, let's kick in. I'm done. Alright. I'm gonna go stand somewhere else, like outside for a minute, grabbing a Red Bull. Because why not? Take this off. Alright, walking out of the shop. We call our workshop the Hive because it's kind of like the central of hell during hunt season. Okay, so what we've got so far is we've taken and finished our mold wall, got our silicone. We got 3 masks now covered in silicone, and then we've done a beauty coat on a couple of them. We have to do a beauty coat on a third one here in a little while. That silicone's probably about done now, but we'll beauty coat the third one. Kind of boring, it looks exactly like the 2 we just did. And then we're gonna get ready to start fiberglassing, and that's kind of a little more interesting to watch. So I'll try and get a good position on the camera and try and see if I can get it started rotated wide view next time so you can really see it all. And then we're gonna get into a pretty massive fiberglass binge and try and get all 3 of these sides done tonight so we can flip them. You can see the Bondo's already dried. Well, I call it the Bondo. It's Bondo resin. It is a Bondo mixed with the resin. And that's already dried, done. By the time I walk back in a minute, the coat we just put on will be done and dried. So it's literally ready to fiberglass next, other than I'm gonna take the time, wait a little while for the other one to finish and Bondo resin it before we chat next, make sure its mold wall's ready. The Bondo as a beauty coat doesn't need to be super thick. It's not about any sort of strength. It's about making sure the silicone has a nice pretty spot to attach in. When you're doing, you can use the Bondo resin mix as a beauty coat on clay. We've done a lot of that. And it's a great way to go do it because then you're getting the detail of your mold is in the Bondo. That's what holds the detail. And so you need to make sure that Bondo coat's a little bit thicker and very even. For this one, some of it's not even, some of it's not perfect, and it doesn't matter. because the only thing it's going to touch is silicone. When you're going to touch foam to it, if you're doing it straight out of a Bondo fiberglass mold, then you need to make sure your beauty coat has enough thickness that it's not going to crack and chip off. If a piece chips off this one, I don't care. The silicone's going to sit in anyway and be held by the fiberglass. And my silicone's thick enough to not shift much. So that's kind of a difference. Next time we do a fiberglass mold of a mask or something, I'll make sure I do a couple of videos on that, let you guys all watch that, because that's a different, slightly different, more detailed process than what we just did. And make sure it's thick enough with a couple coats, or real good thick coats when you're putting it on. So that's about it. Just I'll finish this video now. I'll ping back in, and when we're doing this one later, give us a couple hours, we'll finish prepping it all. No point in watching me ramble. It's very boring, repetitive of you just saw it. And we will chat later. Peace out, Facebook.